Iga Swiatek, Naomi Osaka, Madison Keys, Coco Gauff, Elena Rybakina, Elina Svitolina, Zheng Qinwen. Every single one of those players has lost to Alex Eala. 8 wins in 12 matches against the top 10 in the world. 6 of those wins this year alone. A Grand Slam champion beaten in 76 minutes 8 days ago. And here is the number nobody ever puts next to that one. WTA Tour level titles, won by Alex Eala. 0. None. Not one. In her entire career. Read those 2 facts again, because they should not be able to coexist. This is a 21-year-old who has beaten the world number 2, the world number 3, the world number 5 and the world number 10. She has taken down an Olympic gold medalist. She has taken down a 4-time major winner. And she has never once lifted a trophy at the top level of her sport. So that is the question. That is the whole reason this video exists. If you can beat literally anybody on the planet, why can you not win a tournament? Because those are not the same thing. And somewhere in that gap is the answer to what happens on Sunday. Now, here is the part that makes this uncomfortable. The last time Alex Eala got close to something like this, the last time a real trophy was actually inside her reach, one player took it away from her. Miami, last year. Semi-final. Eala won the 2nd set. She was 1 set from the biggest final of her life. Jessica Pegula sent her home. And on Sunday afternoon in Washington, guess who is standing on the other side of the net? Same woman. Same stage in the story. Except this time it is not a semi-final. This time it is the final, and there is a first ever tour title sitting right there on the court, along with $252,000 and a top 20 ranking. So, what actually went wrong in Miami? Was it nerves? Was it fitness? Was it something in her game that Pegula found and nobody else has bothered to look for since? And more importantly, has it been fixed? I am going to show you exactly what broke that night, and I am going to show you the specific match, 8 weeks ago, where I think it stopped being broken. There is also one number from this week in Washington that almost nobody has mentioned, and it is the single biggest reason to be nervous about Sunday. But before any of that, we need to talk about why this gap exists at all. Because it is not what you think. Now, to be precise, because precision matters here. Alex Eala has won trophies. Guadalajara in 2025. Birmingham, this June, on grass, which was a genuinely excellent week. Both are real titles and both sit on her record. But both of those are WTA 125 events. That is the tier below the main tour. Think of it as the level right underneath the top division. Strong players, real competition, and it is not the same thing as what is on the court on Sunday. At full tour level, the level that goes into the permanent history of the sport, the number is still 0. And I want to be clear about why I am being this careful with the detail. Because if I skip it, somebody in the comments corrects me in 4 minutes, and rightly so. The gap is real, but it is a specific gap. And the specifics are the entire story. So who is she? 21 years old. Left-handed. And here is the stat that reframes everything about how she got here. On the entire WTA Tour, there is exactly 1 player from the Philippines with a singles ranking. 1. Out of more than 120 million people, Alex Eala is not the best Filipina tennis player in the world. She is the only one. There was no system behind her. No national pipeline feeding players onto the tour. No former champion from her country to call when a season went sideways. The Philippines is a basketball nation, a boxing nation, with heroes and history in both. In tennis there was nothing. So as a teenager she left, moved across the world to train in Europe, thousands of miles from home, in a place where she did not speak the language when she landed. In 2023 she was playing Grand Slam qualifying for the first time. In 2024, her career high ranking was 143. 2 years later, she is 25th in the world and 1 match from a title. Which brings us back to the gap. And I need you to understand why it is not a knock on her. Winning a match and winning a tournament are 2 completely different skills. Beating Iga Swiatek is 90 minutes where everything lands. Your timing is perfect, your legs are fresh, you have nothing to lose, and the pressure is entirely on the other side of the net. That is a performance. Anyone in the top 100 can produce one on the right day. Winning a tournament is 7 days of solving 7 different problems. It is playing your 5th match of the week when your quads are heavy and your serve arm is tired. It is dealing with a completely different style every 48 hours. And it is the pressure inverting on you, because by the semifinals, nobody is hoping you win anymore. They expect it. That is a different sport, psychologically. And Eala carries a version of that pressure nobody else in the draw carries. When you are the only one, you do not get to lose quietly. There is no second Filipina on tour for the attention to spread across. Every defeat is a national news story. Morning shows in Manila discuss it. People who have never held a racket have an opinion about your second serve. Now put Sunday on top of all of that. $252,000. The first tour-level WTA title in the history of her country. And a top 20 ranking, which no Filipino player has ever come close to. If you are sitting there right now, genuinely unsure whether she pulls this off, subscribe before we keep going. What comes next is the part almost every channel this week skipped completely, and it is the part that actually decides Sunday. Because there are two nights that created this whole question. Two nights that put the word finally in the title of this video. And the first one is the reason we are here at all. March 2025, Miami. She gets in on a wild card, which is basically a favor. Ranked outside the top 100. Nobody outside her country knows her name. And then she beats Madison Keys, the world number 5, and the reigning Australian Open champion, who had lifted a Grand Slam trophy 8 weeks earlier. 2 days later, she beats Iga Swiatek, the world number 2. Back to back. As a wild card, she becomes the first player from the Philippines to reach a WTA 1000 semifinal. The first to break into the world top 100. In Manila, people are setting alarms for 4 in the morning. This is the week Alex Eala stops being a prospect and becomes a national event. And then, in the semifinal, she plays Jessica Pegula. First set goes to a tiebreak. Pegula takes it 7-6. Second set, Eala wins it 7-5. Level. One set from the biggest final of her life. Against the world number 3. In the middle of the best week she has ever had. Third set. 6-3. Pegula. Now here is my first question, and it is not rhetorical. She had just beaten the world number 2 48 hours earlier. Same court. Same conditions. Same body. So what actually happened in that third set? Because the easy answer is nerves, and I do not think the easy answer is right. Hold on to that. 3 months later, grass season, Eastbourne. She goes one round further than Miami. Not a semifinal this time. A final. Her first ever WTA Tour final. One match. One trophy. History for her country sitting on the court in front of her. She loses. 2 doors, 3 months apart. Both times her hand was on the handle. Both times somebody pulled it shut from the other side. Second question. 1 is bad luck. 2 starts to look like a pattern. So, which is this? Is it something psychological, something that happens in her head when the trophy gets close? Or is it something structural, built into how she actually plays? Because there is a version of this that has nothing to do with her mind at all. And this is where the analysis stops being about feelings and starts being about mechanics. Alex Eala is left-handed, and she is not physically imposing. She is not built like the American power players. She does not hit through the court the way Rybakina or Keys does. And critically, she does not have a serve that wins her free points. In the modern women's game, the serve is the escape hatch. When your timing is off, when your legs are heavy, when you cannot find a forehand to save your life, a big serve gets you off the court. You hold in 90 seconds, you sit down, you breathe, and the storm passes without costing you anything. Naomi Osaka built 4 Grand Slam titles on exactly that foundation. When Osaka is playing badly, she can still hold at love and wait. Eala cannot do that. There is no button to press. Which means, when a match goes wrong for her, she has to solve it. Manually, every single game. With her feet and her brain and her hands, point by point, for 2 hours, with no shortcut available at any moment. That is fine in round 1 when you are fresh. Third question, and this is the one that should worry you. What happens to a player built like that in her 5th match of the week, against a top 3 opponent, when her legs are gone and the one thing that could rescue her is the exact thing she does not possess? Because that is not a hypothetical. That is Sunday. That is literally the situation she is walking into. And look at what the record says when you stack it all up honestly. She has beaten Swiatek, Keys, Gauff, Osaka, Rybakina, Svitolina and Cheng Chinven. 8 top 10 wins in 12 tries. She has reached 3 semifinals this season alone. And she has 0 tour-level titles. That is not a player who cannot compete with the elite. She competes with the elite better than almost anyone at her ranking has ever competed with them. It is something else. Something that only shows up at the very end of tournaments, in the matches that decide who takes the trophy home. She finished 2025 ranked 50th in the world. Career high. Genuinely great year. 2 near misses, no title, and a hole in her game that no amount of practice fixes. Because you cannot practice your way into being 6'1" with 120-mile-an-hour serve. So that is the case against her. And I want to be honest with you, it is a strong case. 2 collapses when it mattered most. A structural limitation she was born with. And an opponent on Sunday who has already proven, in person, that she knows how to close the door. Except every single word of that framing is wrong. And I can show you the exact match where it stopped being true. Here is the thing about that story. It is the wrong story. Miami was not a wound. Miami is the reason she is standing here at all. Before that week, Alex Eala was ranked outside the top 100, playing tournaments nobody televised, and no one outside her country could pick her out of a lineup. Everything she has now, the ranking, the seeding, the direct entry into events like Washington, the fact that you clicked on this video, all of it was built on those 7 days in Florida. We have been calling it the night she lost. It was the week she arrived. And now the bigger one. The assumption I actually need you to throw out. The idea that she does not know how to close. That is not a character flaw, it is not a mental weakness. It is not something buried in her personality that a sports psychologist has to dig out. It is a rep count. Look at what that Miami semifinal actually was. It was the first big semifinal of her life. It was her 6th match in 10 days. She was a wild card who had spent the entire tournament playing above her ranking. And she had never once been in that position before. Not at a smaller event. Not anywhere. Now imagine calling somebody a bad driver because they clipped a curb during their first ever driving lesson. Nobody is good at anything the first time they do it. Not tennis players, not surgeons, not you at your job. The only thing that fixes it is doing it again. And again. Until the situation stops feeling like an emergency and starts feeling like Tuesday. So count the reps she has taken since Miami. Eastbourne, a tour final. Lost it, but she was there. Guadalajara, a title. Birmingham this June, another final, and this time she won it. Wimbledon, 4th round, first Filipino in the Open era to get that deep. Berlin, semifinal. 3 semifinals across the 2026 season. That is not a player avoiding the moment. That is a player who has now been in the deep end of tournaments over and over for 14 straight months. And then there is the match that made me change my entire read on her. In June, on grass, in Berlin, Alex Eala beat Elina Svitolina, 6-3, 6-4. 6 weeks later, on a hard court, in Washington, on a completely different surface, she beat Svitolina again. 6-3. 6-4. The exact same score. Twice. I want you to sit with how strange that is, because I do not think it registered with anybody when it happened. Elina Svitolina is not a player who gets surprised. 20 tour titles. Former world number 3. Over a decade at the top of this sport. She had 6 full weeks and an entire coaching team to prepare for that rematch. She had the video. She had the notes. She knew precisely what was coming at her. And the outcome did not move by a single game. Grass and hard courts reward completely different things. The bounce is different, the timing is different, the whole geometry of a rally changes. You do not accidentally reproduce an identical scoreline across both of them against a top 10 opponent who is expecting you. That is not confidence. That is not a hot streak. That is a plan, executed on demand, against somebody who knew it was coming and could not stop it anyway. And now say that sentence out loud one more time, because it is the whole point. Executing a plan against a prepared opponent under pressure. That is the literal definition of playing a final. The thing everybody says Alex Eala cannot do is the exact thing she did twice in 6 weeks against a former world number 3. I want to know if you see it the same way, honestly. Because I have gone back and forth on this all week. Drop a comment and tell me whether that identical Svitolina scoreline is a coincidence or a system. The comment section here is sharper than most tennis podcasts and I read every one of them. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it in the rest of her week. Because the version of Alex Eala who showed up in Washington is not the wild card from Miami hoping the magic holds for one more day. She is a player with a repeatable method, who now knows what her weapon is, and who has been in enough deep runs that the fifth match of the week is no longer unfamiliar territory. That is the twist. The problem was never her nerve. It was her mileage. And the mileage got filled in while most people were not paying attention. But a formula only means something if it holds up against the best players in the world, back to back, under fatigue, with nothing to hide behind. Which is exactly what this week in Washington was. Round 1 in Washington. Zheng Qinwen. Olympic gold medalist. Former world number 4. Australian Open finalist. Eala loses the first set 6-4. And right there, the old script writes itself. Talented young player, huge name across the net, slow start, thanks for coming, see you next week. She wins the second set 6-4. She wins the third set 6-1. 6-1. In a decider. Against an Olympic champion. That is the exact scenario we spent 5 minutes being afraid of. Third set, legs going, no serve to bail her out. And she did not survive it, she buried it. She won 11 of the last 13 games of that match. That is evidence 1, and it goes straight through the fitness argument. Evidence 2 is the serve. Semi-final, Naomi Osaka. 4-all in the first set, Osaka serving. Osaka loses the first 3 points of the game, which hands Eala 3 break points and a chance to serve out the set. And Osaka, being a 4-time major champion, saves all 3. Deuce. This is the moment. This is precisely where the fairy tale ends in every other version of this story, because this is what great champions do to young players. They make you win it 4 separate times until your arm tightens. 2 points later, Osaka nets a forehand. Eala breaks. And then Alex Eala holds serve at love. Not scraping through 3 deuces with shaking hands. At love. 4 points, no reply, set closed in 38 minutes. Second set, same sequence immediately. Osaka double faults away a break in the opening game. Eala holds at love again, 2-0. 2 service games held to love, at the 2 highest pressure moments of the entire match, by the player we established has no serve to hide behind. The serve did not need to be a weapon, it only needed to show up twice. It did. Evidence 3 is the week itself. Zheng Qinwen, 4-6, 6-4, 6-1. Leylah Fernandez, the defending champion of this tournament, 6-2, 7-6 in a breaker. Eala won 7 points to 1. Alina Svitolina, 6-3, 6-4. Naomi Osaka, 6-4, 6-2, 3 straight sets wins to close it out. An Olympic champion, a defending champion, a world number 10 and a 4-time major winner. In 1 week. 6 top 10 wins in 2026 alone. So now go back to the question we opened with. 8 wins in 12 matches against the top 10, and 0 tour titles. I told you those 2 facts should not be able to coexist. Here is what they actually mean when you put them side by side properly. That is not the profile of a player who folds. It is the profile of a player whose trophy cabinet has not caught up to her level yet. The results arrived before the resume did. That is all. It happens to almost every player who breaks through this fast, and it lasts right up until the week it stops. And here is the piece almost nobody has mentioned, which is the real answer to how a player with no big serve dismantles Grand Slam champions. In the Svitolina quarterfinal, Eala won 24 points on return. Svitolina won 13. 24-13. She did not solve the problem of not having a huge serve. She inverted it. Alex Eala does not win by protecting her own service games. She wins by making yours unbearable. She stands in close on second serves and takes your time away. She is left-handed, so the spin on everything she hits curves the opposite direction to what the entire tour drills against every single day. The safest game on the court, the one you are supposed to control completely, becomes the place where the match quietly leaves your hands. Watch it repeat across the week. Osaka broken at 4-all in the first, broken again to open the second. Svitolina up a break in the second set, and then losing 5 of the next 6 games. Fernandez, the defending champion, losing the first set 6-2. Same pattern, 4 different opponents, 2 different surfaces. That is why Berlin and Washington produced the identical scoreline. It was never luck repeating itself. It was one solution applied twice by a player who finally knows exactly what her weapon is. She came into this tournament ranked 28, already the highest any Filipino player has ever been. She is now 25th in the live rankings. 2 years after sitting at 143. If she wins on Sunday, she walks into the world top 20. Which leaves one match, one opponent, and one question this entire video has been circling. And of every name on this tour, it had to be her. So, the question we started with: how does a player who has beaten Swiatek, Osaka, Keys and Goff have 0 tour titles? Here is the answer, and it is simpler than all the drama built around it. Because until about 14 months ago, she had never stood in that position. Not once. And you cannot be good at something you have never done. The reps were missing. That is the whole thing. She has them now. Eastbourne, Birmingham, Wimbledon, Berlin, and 4 matches in Washington against seeded players, 3 of them closed out in straight sets. It was never her nerve, it was her mileage. Which brings us to Jessica Pegula, world number 3. Top seed. 11 career titles. 22 wins and 4 losses on hard courts this season. And back in this particular final for the first time since 2019, when she won it, and that was the first title of her career. Same 2 women. Same knot in the story. 17 months later, except this time it is not a semi-final. Now let me give you the one number that should genuinely worry you, because I am not going to pretend this is a lock. Of the 4 players who reached the semi-finals in Washington, Alex Eala was the only one without a first-round bye. 4 matches instead of 3. 3 of them against seeded opponents, one of them a 3-setter in the heat. She has spent more time on court this week than anybody left in the draw. Fatigue is the variable. It was always going to be the variable. And almost nobody is talking about it. Here is what Pegula said about her this week, and I think it is the most honest thing anyone in tennis has said all summer. She said it is going to be a battle. She said she is a big fan of Alex. And then she said she is the future of the tour, and she is already here. Already here. Not arriving. Not promising. Here. So the question is no longer whether Alex Eala wins one of these. Watch the last 8 weeks and tell me she does not. The tour has already worked it out, which is why the top 10 players keep saying her name in press conferences. The question is whether it is this one. On Sunday, against the exact woman who took the first one away from her, in a final where a country that has never had a tennis champion is awake at 4 in the morning waiting to find out. I do not know. Nobody does. That is the honest answer, and it is the reason this is worth watching. I am breaking down that final the moment it finishes, win or lose, with exactly what decided it and what it means for the US Open. Subscribe so it reaches you, because whatever happens in Washington is the real answer to the question this entire video has been asking, and it would be a shame to sit through all of this and then miss the ending. Tell me below what you think she does. And I will see you after the match.